sunny day. When it's cold outside, I've got the month of May. I guess you say what can make me feel this way, my girl, my girl, talking about my girl.
Hello, my name is Christopher Ray Pruitt, and I'm getting married. I'm 30 years old. I work full-time as a field representative for a computerized financial services company. I also go to school full-time at Cal State Fullerton. I have 10 wonderful classes left until I get my Bachelor of Science degree with a phys ed major and business minor, and then I don't know what I'm going to do after that.
My name is the Reverend Taft L. Mitchell, and my images of Chris, because I am a preacher, I have 3 images. I have no proposition, but at least the 3 images. And the first is that Chris always has struck me as an observer. It's interesting how whenever you are in a large crowd with Chris, he is either with a small group of people or else he is in a situation where he is observing everyone else. It is later that Chris would come to me at times and say, "Did you notice this? Or did you notice that? Did you hear or react to this particular statement that was said?" Chris has always been very astute in his observation of other people and always has formed relationships based upon a greater knowledge of others than perhaps sometimes they actually realized. I think the second characteristic of Chris that always will stick with me is his aura that he projects of great gentleness. Chris is a warm, compassionate person, and someone to whom people respond very naturally and very warmly themselves. They trust him, and he inspires trust. Another thing about Chris is that he really likes to play. He enjoys so much of life. He likes to play physically. He always has enjoyed sports, of course, and he's always been very, very athletic. But he just likes to play in relationship with people. He likes to enjoy them. He likes to be in warm and caring groups, and he carries certainly his weight in those groups. He just enjoys life.
My name is John Sloan, and I met Chris at PCC 12 years ago. And the first time he met me, he thought I was a maintenance worker. He wasn't really sure that I went to PCC because I had really long hair, and I didn't fit the PCC mold. Well, probably the first thing that would remind me of Chris would be if I could find a green football helmet. I'd have to put that in a box because for a long time that was pretty important in his life. And probably next to that green helmet would have to be a Bible. And as a little joke, I try to get a bus schedule for the fact that he took a bus for a semester to get to and from school, and that's kind of a little joke between us to see if he had any money for the bus, and finally he broke down and got a bus pass.
My name's Dan Bender. I've known Chris Pruitt for, I guess 10, 12 years. That's kind of hard to imagine because I guess that would put him back as a teenager. Chris kind of comes across as a kind of a big smiley bear. Every now and then it's a little slow little grin, there's a lot of little things churning behind it. The smile cracks, a little glimmer in the eye opens up. Sometimes he speaks a little slower before he gets to whatever it is he's going to hit you over the head with, or where he may be going to, and lead you around, but very sensitive.
If the people who knew Christopher all sat down and said, well, what kind of woman is it going to take for him to give the nod toward marriage? Or what kind of girl is it going to take to snag the Pruitt? I think the first thing I would have said is that it had to be somebody with depth, intellectual depth, spiritual depth, someone who enjoyed the deep conversation, someone who had the tremendous faith, because he's that way, and he enjoys sharing that. I think it'd have to be somebody who was people-oriented enough to be with him and enjoy people the way he does. I think it had to be somebody who's fun, just spontaneous enough to put up with his midnight excursions, and there's no way Pruitt would compromise in terms of looks. She's going to have to be good looking. We're not going to let Pruitt marry anybody who's not good looking. And so I think, yeah, we'd have all sat down and said, these are the things that Christopher's got to have. And voila, he's got them.
My name is Susan Annette Poyer. I like horseback riding. I like water skiing. I like having fun with lots of people. I like laughing most of all, probably. I like eating pizza on Friday nights and other nights of the week too. I like ice cream a lot, probably too much. I like intellectual conversations, even though I'm not prepared for them. I like to be with family at certain times. Sometimes I like to be away from family. And I like to spend time with Chris.
My name is Kathy Foster, and I'm Susan's older sister. And of course, I've known Susan all her life. And I think about all the times that we've laughed. I've always said Sue's my best source of laughter. And it's not any in particular thing, but all her, we can just be kids and be goofy, and she can make me laugh easy. People that know Susan on the surface, she's a real serious person, but I know that other side of Susan that's goofy and can let her hair down, and she's the silliest person I know. She really is. She's, we have our own little language that we use that drives Chris nuts, you know. Her and Rob really get goofy when they get together. They do a lot of Saturday Night Live skits, you know, like the clumsy ballet dance, you know, where they'll start out real graceful, and then when Rob goes to pick her up, they both fall on the floor, you know. And they just do things like that just make people laugh. You know, she's made me and my mom just laugh till we had tears in our eyes, you know.
My name is Jane Poyer, and I want it known that if it wasn't for me and my husband Larry, that Susan and Chris would have not met, because we were the first people to get involved with North Orange, as that's where we were married. And from then on, the Poyer clan all joined in and became very active in the church, because they were very happy with our ceremony and the minister and the church setting. Some other things about Susan, I think, is that she's very, very perceptive person, and she's very much aware of other people's feelings around her. And if ever I'm in a bad way and I need somebody to talk to, almost like a therapy session per se, I think Susan is like the perfect person to sit down with. And so also is Chris, and I think they put a lot of energy into listening to people, active listening, and really caring. They really deeply care, and I think that's something that makes their relationship together very special because of that.
My name is Mike Poyer, Susan's brother. Not too long ago, me and Chris were talking about girls. I was talking to him about what I like in a girl, and he was talking about what he likes in a girl, and he was saying that he would love to marry somebody that he could love and be tender to, be soft with, and feel he's not being taken advantage of. And Susan is that kind of person. She will love him back just as equally.
It was wonderful growing up as a kid. Wonderful. We had a 3-adult home. We had Mom and Dad and Grandma there to help us, raise us and guide us and all those things, teach us everything we needed to know. And even though all three played roles that are different than the normal roles, with the three of them there, we got enough of everything that we needed, you know, to turn out okay. But growing up was fun. We had 5 kids. We fought a lot, you know, we laughed a lot and played a lot together. There were times when I hated my sister Liz. I absolutely hated her with a passion. But if anybody else touched her or gave her a hard time, I'd beat them up or go after them because I loved her so much, you know.
Growing up as Susan Poyer was very interesting. I grew up in a very small, a small town. My whole world was 6 brothers and sisters and mom and dad and occasionally aunts and uncles. That was basically my world, you know. I didn't have a lot of friends because I was shy, and I grew to respect my brothers and sisters a lot. And even though I didn't show it to them because I didn't want them to think they were getting away with anything, I really did, and more now than when I was a kid. Some of the things I think about when I grew up was a lot had to do with horses. Ever since I can remember, we had horses up until the time I was 13 or 14 or something. And even to this day, I have a pair of cowboy boots that I wore when I was a kid.
Susan and I were friends for a long time, probably 2-3 years before we ever started dating. I found out that Sue cut hair. Well, I was paying $20 a shot for a haircut at the time. I said, now wait a minute, she only charges $5. I'll try her one time. She can't be that bad. If I make a mistake, I'm only out $5 and it'll grow back. Try it. So I went over to her house, got my hair cut, and liked it. The price was right, the cut was great. So then, about every 2 months, I would just made Susan my barber, and I went over and got my hair cut. Well, that went on for about a year, probably, and I'd spend time at their house, talk to the family and everything else. So I got to know them all, I got real comfortable. Well, something happened, and my heart started beating a little bit harder when I thought about Susan. I thought, you know, my hair is getting a little long, and it has only been a month, but I should look better now that I'm in sales, so it's time for another haircut. And I started going over to Susan's house for haircuts a little more often than I had before. And as my heart beat faster, and I found myself going for more haircuts on a more regular basis, I also discovered that I quit talking to her family and started talking to her more when I was there. I must have appeared pretty rude. But so before you knew it, I was showing up at her house about every 2 weeks for a haircut. I was making more money so I could afford it, and she was still doing a great job cutting a 1/4 inch off of my hair all the way around every time I went to see her. And we would end up spending an hour or two together talking. So it was a wonderful situation.
The first time that he came for a 2-week visit, you know, I mean, the first time he came after 2 weeks of getting his hair cut, I thought, well, it hasn't grown very much. I don't think I told him that, but I just thought, and I really did think that he seriously wanted to look better now that he was in sales, you know. And so I didn't cut that much off. I just thought it was really weird that he was coming so soon.
You kind of know when people are good for each other because when they're together you just get a feeling, and it's not something that you can put into words oftentimes, but it's just a feeling that you know it's okay and it's going to work, and they have a great relationship. And that's the feeling I think anyone gets when they're around Chris and Susan. And when you have that feeling, then you know that they seem to both be good for each other, and they both do a lot of good things for each other.
I've been passing time, watching trains go by. All of my life, lying on the sand, watching seabirds fly, wishing there would be someone waiting home for me. Something's telling me it might be you. It's telling me it might be you. All of my life, looking back as lovers go walking past. All of my life, wondering how they met and what makes it last. If I found the place, would I recognize the face? Something's telling me it might be you. Yeah, it's telling me it might be you. So
Since I've known Susan, and because I've known Susan, I've changed in several ways. And most of it centers around my feelings about women. Before meeting Susan and really getting to know her, I didn't trust women in general. I lacked trust. I also found that I couldn't get very close to them or let them get close to me. So it took a long time, and Sue and I would talk about this as we dated, and I would kind of give her a gauge on the trust meter and how it was going, and that on a periodic basis I would just report to her and say, you know, you're really getting to me. I trust you more and more. Not all the way yet, not 100%, but more and more. And I would cling to that, you know, little 10% that I could own of my own to keep to myself and not give to her. But because I've been able to give her all my thoughts and feelings, it's a sign that I trust her completely. And it has had a spin-off effect where now it's very easy for me to take a woman at her word for what she says and not to try to read anything into it and to trust them with my own thoughts.
I tend to interest myself in other people more than I used to before I met Chris. I tend to spend more time with them and getting to know them and how they feel and developing deeper relationships with other people. If it weren't for the people who I've called friends over the years, I would be confused in a lot of ways. When it comes to making important decisions, I always look back and think about what it is that other people think on those decisions, what it is they've decided, and how it's affecting them now. And I take that knowledge and use it in making my own decision. And that's what I mean by saying that I would be confused by not having that knowledge or not having those tools to work with.
Over the past few years, the people that I've called friends have given a lot to me. And you know, the one thing I can say that I really credit them with is balance. They've given me balance in my life because they are so diverse in what they believe and what they think and what they do. They've given me a lot of balance, different perspectives on life. There is no one set philosophy on how it is to be lived. You know, there are a lot of things you can do with your life and a lot of beliefs. There are so many different types of thoughts and feelings that I've been able to listen to and absorb from them, that now I can be much more sensitive to somebody else if they disagree with me, you know, which I think makes you more apt to accept people for who they are, not for what they do or say. And that's really important. I owe that to all those people who have made an impression on me.
You can play the game and you can act out the part, though you know it wasn't written for you. But tell me, how can you stand there with your broken heart, ashamed of playing a fool? But one thing can lead to another. It doesn't take any sacrifice. Whoa, father and mother, sister and brother, if it feels nice, don't think twice. Just shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. Do as I say, yes. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. You can run, but you cannot hide. This is widely known. And what you plan to do with your foolish pride when you're all by yourself alone? Won't you tell somebody the way that you feel? You can